In this video, I'm going to be breaking down specific strategies that you can use to make sure your items are actually going to sell on Amazon. So whether you're sourcing your very first product right now and you just need some confidence to know how much those items are actually going to sell, or maybe you have inventory that you wish you hadn't bought and you're wondering how you can actually get rid of those items, this video we're going to go ahead and break down some strategies that I've used in my business to help save thousands and thousands of dollars. But if you're new to the channel, my name's Warner Fields from Fields of Profit. I'm a full-time 7-figure Amazon seller. And so we're going to go ahead and break down those strategies. But if you're looking for even more free resources to learn how to sell on Amazon, linked directly beneath me is going to be a link to our completely free Amazon seller Discord community. It's over 35,000 people in there, a ton of free information. Would love to see you in there, but let's go ahead and jump into the video. So for this video, I'm going to run through some of those specific strategies to make sure that while you're sourcing items, you're actually going to be able to sell them. And then once you do buy, make sure they're going to sell as quick as possible. So with that said, we're going to go through this kind of the beginner stuff first, kind of get a little bit more advanced as we go. So if you're already a seasoned seller, make sure to stick around. I'm sure you'll pick up a couple nuggets later on, but let's go ahead and just break down this item right here. So let's say I was sourcing this product right here, just for the fun of it. We'll say we're buying it for $9. Probably that'd be a really good deal based on this product, but just for the sake of the experiment, this product's $9 for us. So looks like a great lead, right? Over here on SellerAmp, it's just simply giving us our fees based on that $9 cost price. If we're going to sell it for about 19 bucks, our profits would be $3, 35% ROI. Pretty solid lead, sells decently fast, 503 times per month. But we don't want you to be completely reliant on softwares like SellerAmp, right? We want to be able to combine a ton of information and really understand what's going on as an Amazon seller. Software is amazing, it's going to help get you far, but you really need to understand what's going on, right? So this right down here is the Keepa chart. Hopefully you're familiar with this. If you're not, please go watch like a beginner guide on Keepa. But a couple things I'm seeing while I'm looking at this item right here, I'm going to go ahead and try to make it as simple as possible for us. So I will go ahead and throw on this buy box line, which is a little chaotic here. But when I'm looking at this item here, I'm looking at a couple things, right? So I'm looking at this green line. This is the sales rank. I'll take that off just while we're breaking it down. So a couple things I can learn by looking at this item is back here, when the sales rank was lower, it was selling a little bit faster. It makes sense, right? If we go ahead and throw on the buy box price, it looks like over time back then, the price was a little bit lower on average. So simple economics there, right? This product is $5 cheaper. People actually want to buy it for that. But when I'm looking at a Keepa chart on an item like this, really, I'm just trying to get a sense of how does this item behave when it's selling for the price that I want it to sell for, right? So in this case, I went ahead and priced this item as though I'm going to sell it for $18.95. And in this case, it looks like the item has pretty consistently sold for $19. We can see that the sales rank stays pretty consistent here when it's in that price range between, up to 30,000 sales rank, goes all the way down as low as like a 15,000 sales rank. It's a pretty fast selling product in beauty, by the way. The closer you get to one, that would be the fastest selling product in the beauty category. So this tells me that number one, the price over time of $19 is fairly reasonable to expect. It's not too unrealistic. I would want to consider the fact that the item might go back down to $16 back here in the past. But when we're thinking about making sure our items are actually going to sell, it's important to know that customers are actually going to pay the price we want to charge for the item. So in this case, looking at this graph right here, it seems pretty reasonable that people will pay $19 for it. So knowing that we're a little bit more confident in the fact that, yeah, sure, I can buy it, sell it for $19. Now we can kind of break down how much of this we would actually expect to be able to sell. So like we said over here on SellerAmp, it is expected to sell about 503 times a month. So I would go ahead and scroll down here. Now we want to see what our competition looks like on this listing. So in this case, looks like we've got this FBA seller right here at $19, another one over here at $19.14, and then they pretty immediately go up to $21 here. So in this case, there's a couple different things we could think about here. So it's clear that this FBM seller is getting the buy box in this case. A lot of times FBM sellers are not competitive for the buy box. In this case, they are. So we would definitely want to include them as a competitor here. But if we are going to sell for that $19 price point, in this case, we would have this guy as a competitor. This guy would be a competitor for sure because he's FBA. This guy for sure as well. They're right there close to that $19 price point. And then this FBM seller who's $1 more expensive, no buyer is probably going to want to buy from them. The buy box isn't really going to rotate to them. Maybe the buy box rotates to this guy right here. Basically, that's just the add to cart button if you're unfamiliar with what the buy box is. So in this case, I'm pretty much considering there to be 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 competitive sellers. So we could call ourselves the 5th competitive seller on an item like this if we did want to go ahead and sell it for that $19 price point. Scrolling on back up here to our estimated sales, looks like we're selling at 503 times per month. On the Keepa over here, we already learned that that's a pretty stable expectation of the demand that we can get on this item. It's not unreasonable. It's not going to, sell way slower in the future because it's sold way slower in the past, right? Obviously, there's going to be things that are out of our control sometimes, but combining all this information that we're looking at here, we know it's a reasonable expectation to sell it for 19 bucks. There's a couple other competitors, and so we would be the 5th competitor there. Dividing those sales between all 5 of us, you would expect to be able to sell about 100 units of this every single month. So in this case, I would go ahead and place an order. For me, I would probably just go ahead and buy 100 of these, especially if you're able to get a great product like this one. This brand is a pretty good brand on Amazon as well. So if you're able to get a product like that, I would probably just go ahead and get 100 of this product. If you're a little on the newer side, my most recent video is talking about kind of how to build up that confidence, right? We don't all want to go out and spend, in that case, it'd be like $1,000 on some random translucent powder, right? So while you're building up that confidence, that would be a great place to go ahead and place a test order in this case. Maybe you get 50 units, stock up for half a month, maybe you get 20 units just to see how it goes. And then from there, once you get that real test data, then you're actually going to know specifically how fast it's sold because you have that real-time data. And so based on that data, you're kind of going to want to figure out how fast did this item sell while it was in stock, and then multiply that by 30 and stock up accordingly, right? Because sometimes you may sell way faster than this, sometimes you sell way slower than this. I will say SellerAmp tends to underestimate sales in my experience. I would probably prefer SellerAmp to underestimate sales. I don't want to overestimate, think I found an amazing product, buy thousands of units, and then get stuck with a whole bunch of inventory, right? So in this case, I would definitely lean towards that 100 unit order or so on an item like this. So then I also want to go ahead and show you kind of a cool trick here that you might not have used before. Down here on the Keepa chart, you can go ahead and click this more historical data option. And this is going to show us, number one, it's going to show us the number of new sellers. You can also toggle on the rating if you really wanted to, but it's also going to go ahead and show us the review count. This is something that I think a lot of people are not using enough in terms of figuring out how fast your items are truly selling. So when I'm looking at an item like this, we can kind of infer how fast items are selling based on their reviews, right? It makes sense. You have to buy the product to review the product. It's obviously going to be a much smaller percentage of those customers who buy it that actually review it. So it's not going to be the perfect data, but it is going to be a great little test to make sure this product is actually selling. So when I'm looking at an item like this, there's a couple things I'm seeing. Number one, back here in the past, when it was selling really fast, remember the sales rank was a little bit lower than normal. We can see that this review count is going up pretty steadily here. A decently linear pattern here, nothing too crazy. Right here, it looks like we had a little bit of a jump in sales volume. Again, right here, you can see the sales rank really dipped down, got closer and closer to 1. That means we had more and more sales. And so a lot of people started reviewing this product. We had, looks like 10 or so reviews within a week, maybe a couple weeks there. And then another thing I'm seeing as we get further into this period where we've had this item selling for $19, I'm noticing here that the review count is kind of flattening out a little bit. Notice back here when the item was way cheaper, we had a lot more reviews. And then recently, since September 1st or so, it looks like we were at 514 reviews. And now on September 13th, we are at 516. So that's much slower than it was in the past. So that's another thing you want to think about. But the fact that we can see that these reviews are still going up, although it is slower than it used to be, the reviews are still going up, which means customers are still buying this item. And it's really just another way that we can continue to validate those sales on an item. So I also wanted to talk about a little bit of a different case, something that a lot of newer sellers tend to avoid is selling on variation listings. So in this case, we've got this listing with jeans, we've got all these different colors and all these different sizes. You can tell there's going to be a ton of different products on this listing. And when we look over here on SellerAmp, it looks like it's telling us this item sells 9,000 times a month. It's a 600 BSR. So this item sells like hotcakes, right? But a common mistake that a lot of beginners will make is when you're looking at a variation listing, this estimated sales and this bestseller rank actually corresponds to the parent ASIN of this product. And within that, each individual color and size on this listing has their own, it's called a child ASIN. So they have their own specific ASIN. You can see right up here that this is the barcode basically that specifically correlates to the indigo color 34 by 32. This is the specific ASIN for that product. And this specific ASIN does not sell 9,000 times a month. I suppose it could, but it's probably not going to be for reasons I'll show you right now. So when we're looking at this item, we want to see how fast is my item actually going to sell, right? That's the whole concept we're talking about, right? So we've already established not selling 9,000 times a month. So now we need to figure out how can I infer how fast this item is actually selling. So to do that, you can use the variations feature on SellerAmp. You can click check. It's going to do the same thing. I like to use Keepa to do the same thing. It's going to kind of really be whatever your preference is here. So I go to variations, and then I'm just going to go ahead and wait for these variations to load in. And now something really useful we can see is the ratings histories of all these items and the number of ratings for all these items more specifically. You can see SellerAmp's loading in that data for us as well, but I'm going to go ahead and copy the ASIN over here. Just got to click that. And now what I'm going to do is head to ASIN, filter it out. And now I see that this specific size, actually it has the little trophy, meaning it is one of the highest percentage in terms of ratings. So this variation is selling super fast, right? But it's only 2% of the total ratings on this listing. So from that, we can kind of infer, you know, if ratings roughly equal sales, then this is kind of the best thing we have to go off of in terms of how fast this item is actually selling. So we can do 2% times that 9,000 sales per month. That would probably put you somewhere around 180 sales per month on this one specific size and color of jeans. So if you did want to go ahead and sell this exact product or a product with variations, that's the same kind of math you're going to want to do. Don't go out and buy 1,000 pairs of these thinking you're going to sell 9,000 of them a month, or you and a couple other sellers on this listing, when really you're going to be selling 9,000 times 2%. So make sure you're doing that. That's how fast your items are actually going to sell when you're looking at a variation listing. And then another thing I wanted to just quickly point out for you guys, if you're looking at a listing where in this case it's being sold, the brand is Dr. Squatch, says it's being sold by Dr. Squatch. So in this case, immediate red flag, the brand themselves is selling this product. If you owned this brand, you'd probably want the other people on your listings gone, right? So number one, this brand is probably going to kick you off this listing with an IP complaint. Just got to do your prior research. So we're doing just some simple recon here to make sure we can actually sell these products, right? But if you're not sure if the brand is kind of dominating on a listing, in this case, we have to imagine that Dr. Squatch wants all the sales on this listing, right? Any brand that properly has their brand registry set up and all that good stuff, they're going to be artificially hogging the buy box on those listings, hogging this button right here that says add to cart. And if you don't have that button, you're probably not really going to be making that many sales. So one thing you want to think about when you're looking at a product to make sure you're going to be able to sell it at all is to go to data and then go to buy box statistics. And in this case, we can go to 30, 90, 180 days. You see that one seller has 100% of the buy box over the last 180 days. If you ever see that on a listing, number one, it could lead to IP complaints for your business. But number two, if they're not sharing sales with you, the number of items you're actually going to sell, it's zero. They are artificially hogging the buy box in this case. So definitely stay away from listings like this, where Keepa is telling us that the buy box is 100% being won by a different seller. So once you've used all that info to make sure you're sourcing products that you can actually sell, make sure you're going to be able to sell a ton of those products, right? Even if you do your product research perfectly, you're still going to end up with products that don't pan out quite how you'd hope. So that's where this software that is called BeCool comes into play. It's a repricing software and just kind of addressing a lot of the beginner fears in this video, right? If you're scared that your items aren't going to sell on Amazon, this is a great tool, and I'll kind of show you briefly what it does here. I've got longer breakdowns on the channel if you're interested in that. But in this case, for these items here, a couple things to think about here. So in this case, on these items, I can see the minimum price and the maximum price on each of these items. And basically what that means is I'm telling my repricer here, hey, I don't want the price of this item to be lower than $8 or higher than $55, right? And this is my custom rule. There's a bunch of different custom rules you can set within BeCool, but I just kind of want to talk into that fear of, maybe my items aren't going to sell, right? So in this case, if you're looking at your inventory, and I'm seeing in this case, this is some really old inventory. It's just some books I sold way back in the day, but I'm seeing a lot of these prices are at my minimum price here. So minimum. And so if you're seeing a lot of that on your items on Amazon, if you're using a repricer, I would highly encourage you to use a repricer. If you are kind of at that stage in your business, if you're selling a couple $1,000 a month, I would have a repricer if I were you. But on these tools, this is how you're going to make sure your items are actually selling, right? All these custom rules are going to be repricing my items overnight when I'm buying more inventory, when I'm doing whatever I want, right? Every 15 minutes, this software is going to come in and it's going to say, all right, your competitor, they're priced at $13. Right now you're at $12. We're going to go ahead and raise your price up $1 so you're more profitable, or vice versa. Let's say your competitor on this item right here, we want to be between $8 and $55. Let's say my competitor lowered to $12 and I'm at 13. Going to go ahead and lower to $12 for me. I already told it I'm happy with that price. So it's going to automatically make that change and make sure I'm there the next time that sales are actually going to happen on that listing. So as you are buying that inventory, if you're worried about your items not selling fast enough, make sure you're jumping into a repricer or manually jumping in on the back end of Amazon Seller Central and monitoring the prices of other sellers on these listings. So when I'm looking through BeCool, I'm kind of specifically looking at the items where I'm at my minimum price. Basically what that's telling me is there's a competitor who's under that price. And so from there, I'll kind of go in and I'll address those listings where I'm at my minimum price. I'll make that decision. Am I ready to lower my price? In this case, it's telling me that currently the buy box is at $8 on this item. I wanted to sell it for $14. So maybe I wouldn't lower my price in that case. But if you come in and maybe the buy box was at $13.80, sure, you'd probably lower it by 20 cents to make that next sale, right? So that's kind of the manual work that you're going to want to do. Really try to make sure you're adjusting your pricing as often as possible, especially if you're using a repricer. Make sure you're checking those minimums and checking those maximums. That's really going to be making sure you're staying in the buy box and making sure those sales are continuing to come in how you'd planned, right? You don't want to go out and buy 100 of those makeups we talked about, not check your repricer. You could have lowered your price by 20 cents and made sales the whole week. So make sure you're on top of things with your prices. That's honestly going to be the best way to make sure your items are actually selling. And so having a good repricer like BeCool is a big key to that. If you want to check that out, there's going to be a free trial for BeCool down below. also got some longer guides on the channel showing off Be Cool if you want to check that out as well. So hopefully now you should be a lot more confident when you're going out there and buying inventory for your Amazon business. So you got a little bit better of an idea how fast these products actually sell on Amazon, right? If you did get value out of this video, please feel free to add some value to my business and hit that subscribe button down below. Really appreciate that. If you guys have any questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to drop those down below. Always happy to answer those. But I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next time.